Hey, welcome to Into the Fire. It's finally here. We finally are on the air, and this is the beginning of hopefully a very, very long journey. So I welcome everybody from wherever you're from, and the goal today is to have fun, and we're going to have a really good time, I hope, and it's just going to get better from here. And the farther we go with the show, the more comfortable that I am going to become, no doubt. So first off, I wanted to just kind of do a special thanks really to a few people that are responsible really for a lot of this. This is kind of like a podcast, but in reality, it's really a radio show. And the reason why there's a radio show going on here is because there's a lot of people going on in this deal. And I want to really mention Chris DePerno, first of all. Without Chris, Chris basically is the one that I did an interview, and he's the host on iDetective, one of a few hosts on that show, and he's kind of the main guy on iDetective that's on another day of the week. And without Chris, I did an interview with him, and Chris apparently, he liked what he heard and so forth, and he gave me this incredible opportunity that I'm going to take full advantage of. Not only am I going to thank Chris, but I want to thank the Bill Forte, who is the program director with KGRA. And I've had many discussions with both Bill and Chris along the way, and that video, which is really super cool as far as I'm concerned, was basically between the two of us and myself and the third person that I'm going to mention, which is Amanda Karan, and she's the producer. And so what does that mean is she is the lady she's behind the curtain, and she's actually back there making sure that everything that happens goes to plan. Like if I have pictures that I need to have thrown up there or videos and stuff like that, and that's what she does. So she's actually all the way up in Nova Scotia, Canada, which is really cool. So we've got people out in New York. We've got her in Nova Scotia. We've got a lot of people that are responsible for all of this happening, and I think it's pretty cool. So that's kind of what's up. I wouldn't get too attached to the song, even though it's super cool. I've got a guy by the name of Scotty Austin, formerly from Saving Abel, that is actually writing a piece for this show, and I've heard parts of it, and it sounds just epic. And so that's going to be in the future, I'm sure, down the line. But I'm not rushing him. I want it to be just perfect. So he's doing his thing, and he's super cool. And so that's basically that. This is what this show is going to be about. The show is going to be, we're going to focus on true crime, and we're going to talk about, current events and things like that. But we're also going to talk to interesting people. And one of the things that I really like about this show is, especially after talking to Bill and Chris, is they said, hey, man, this is your show. So you can do whatever you want, and you can talk about whatever you want. And so that's one of the things that I think is super cool, is that I've kind of got creative control as to what direction we want to go. But I will tell you that one of the directions that I want to go, so to speak, is a direction where I want to talk to people that are movers and shakers, and people that are going in very, very positive directions in the world of criminal justice and or other areas in the world, and they're really contributing to the rest of us. And that's really what I want to focus on. So with that being said, I want to tell you just briefly about myself in the event that you don't know who I am. Once again, my name is Jason White. I'm going to be the main host of the show, but I'll tell you this, and for a lot of people that have kind of had teasers along the way on some of my social media platforms, is that my co-host, also known as my wingman, is going to be Ronnie Leatherman. And he's somebody that a lot of you are familiar with, because he and I have both been on the show called The First 48 for nearly a decade. And we've been on there, not only on that show, but we've actually been on After the First 48, which is a spinoff from The First 48. If you haven't catched that show, if you've never heard of that show, then you had to have been living under a rock, because that thing has been on cable TV as one of the number one cable TV reality police shows since 2004. It's been on forever. Tulsa's been on there forever. We've got more episodes on that show than any other city since 2004. So we've been on there since 2014, etc. But Ronnie will be joining us. His daughter had something big going on tonight, and I didn't want to interrupt that. And I told him, don't worry about it. Well, that's more important than this, and I'll handle it for the first night. But be looking for him. He will be on here, and it'll be a lot of fun, etc. So once again, to tell you a little bit about myself, I've been a police officer with the city of Tulsa for 25 years. This is not affiliated with that in any way, shape, or form. I just wanted to make a mention. They didn't tell me I had to say this, but I'm just mentioning that anything and everything that I say here is not necessarily endorsed by the Tulsa Police Department, but I am a cop with Tulsa Police, and I've been here for over 25 years. I've worked in a variety of assignments, and that has included undercover, narcotics, street crimes. I was a school resource officer. I've worked as a crime scene detective, but most of my career, actually over half of that, has been in homicide, where I have been a part of somewhere in the neighborhood of probably 700 homicides total. I've assisted on around 600, and I've been the lead on about 107. So I've been around the block. I've been doing that. And also I was a crisis negotiator for a little over 10 years, about 10 and a half years. And I've done a lot of things in that capacity. And once again, we have had the honor and privilege to be a part of the First 48, which has allowed us to be in many places, many of people's homes on their television sets. And so a lot of people have got to get to know us throughout the world, actually. So that's been really cool. This guy that I'm going to bring on here, he's a super cool guest. I've got probably 20 to 25 guests lined up, and some of these people you have heard of, and some of the other ones you may not have heard of, but you're gonna be really, really impressed after you get to meet them through this broadcast, because I've picked people that I'm still shocked that some of these individuals have actually agreed to be a part of this show. I would encourage you that in listening to this, if you thought of somebody or you know of somebody that actually is somebody that you feel would be a really good guest that would contribute in a good way to the show, I mean, throw their names down and tell me a little bit about them, and I may reach out to them and see if they would be somebody for down the line that we might be able to incorporate into the show. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for superstars, people that are just really making a difference, and impressive people that really bring a lot to the table. And that's really what it's about. And that leads me to this guy that we're going to talk about right now. And that is Brian Serber. And I'm going to read his bio for you. And I think after you hear this, you're going to see how impressive this guy really is. Brian Serber is the deputy director of the Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics. Immediately prior to that, Serber served as the Bureau's general counsel, as well as the first assistant district attorney for the 12th Judicial District for Rogers, Mays, and Craig counties here in Oklahoma. Serber was formerly a special agent with the Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics assigned to the Tulsa office. Serber graduated from Oklahoma State University in 1993 and from the University of Oklahoma College of Law in 1996. After graduating from law school, Serber served as an assistant district attorney and director of the 8th District Drug Task Force for 8 years. In 2004, he went on to work for the Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics as a deputy general counsel, primarily supervising and prosecuting wiretap cases and overseeing practitioners registered with the Bureau. And I'm here to tell you that if you've ever dealt with a wiretap case, they're super complicated. So that's impressive in and of itself. He also was appointed a special agent or special assistant district attorney in 2004, as well as a special assistant attorney general in 2005, 2015, and 2017. In addition to his legal duties, Serber was commissioned as an agent in April of 2006. Shortly after being appointed general counsel in late 2006, he was reassigned from the legal division to become a full-time special agent. He is currently a special assistant U.S. attorney for the Northern District of Oklahoma, and he has prosecuted thousands of narcotics cases and was the 2001 and 2001 202 Association of Oklahoma Narcotic Enforcers State Prosecutor of the Year, the 2005 Distinguished Adjunct Faculty Award winner for Northern Oklahoma College, the 2011 to 12 Association of Oklahoma Narcotics Enforcers State Officer of the Year, the 12 to 13 recipient of Association of Oklahoma Narcotic Enforcers Outstanding Achievement Award, and the 2015 Rogers County Co-Prosecutor of the Year. And I'm almost done. And right now, that right there in and of itself is a career. But as we continue on here, he has also taught over 200 seminars. Actually, he's got in here in parentheses 350 seminars in 18 states, primarily in the areas of Fourth Amendment and narcotics laws. Serber also authored the Investigator's Guide to Search and Seizure, as well as the Prosecutor's Guide to Fourth and Fifth Amendment Motions to Suppress, both published by the Regional Organized Crime Information Center. And he is also the co-author of the Oklahoma Drug Prosecutor's Desk Reference. I'm sure that's riveting reading, but very important. And Serber also was the former editor of the police papers published by the Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics. Serber has also written numerous articles for law enforcement publications, and he is the author of the #1 best-selling book called Injustice for All: The Familiar Fallacies of Criminal Justice Reform. And with all of that, I need a little bit of oxygen probably. And I also realize how much I need to pick up and step up my game to even be I'm just impressed to all more than you would even know. So I want to welcome Brian Serber.
Hey,
Thank
Jason,
you,
how you
buddy.
doing?
I'm great. Not to
So,
mention you're a good friend of mine. So
well, good friend. Well, a couple things. The co-author of the desk reference, which probably helps with insomnia. The co-author is actually your brother. He's the other one that wrote that with me. And
okay.
hey, I got a question. So I saw this intro video. Is that intro video yours for the show?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And
So there
actually,
was.
I put a lot of those ideas in their heads, and then Bill, the main guy that's behind the scenes, he actually he put that together in like 10 minutes. It was amazing to watch him at work, but he put
Well,
that
well,
together.
my question is, in the video, there's this ripped detective in a short sleeve shirt interviewing somebody from the next. Is that you, Jason? From the
Yeah,
next. Yeah,
that's
okay. I figured that was you. And
yeah, that's me for sure. That's me for sure. Now, the reason why I brought you on here, and really, we talked about this earlier today, and I wanted to make mention of this. I just read your resume, your bio, basically, and in reading that, you are one of those type of people, Brian, that I really look up to. I mean, you are that's somebody that is making a difference in the world of criminal justice, especially not only in the state of Oklahoma, really, but throughout this country. And man, can you imagine what life would be like if everybody that we encounter out there in the world of criminal justice was, motivated to do more? And you have just done a mother load, and I think that I'm hoping to inspire some people. That's kind of the big thing. And I like to inspire and motivate people when I'm doing my teaching, and that's something that I would like to hear a little bit about. How did you get to this point to do all of this stuff? And you just tell us about that.
well, it- there's probably two parts to that. The first thing is I really enjoy just speaking about it. I mean, I just um, I like on issues that relate to public safety and police officers and prosecutors. I really just enjoy talking about those things and kind of always have, and I know you do too. It's just I just enjoy it as something that I've always liked doing. Of course, you and I have crossed paths. I don't know how many times at different conferences, beyond just when we're both working in Tulsa and crossing paths in cases and just kind of collaborating and partnering up on things. We'll see each other in other states sometimes, and so I really enjoyed it. But currently, I mean, it's the I'm coming up on. I've done over 20, I guess 28 and a half years now that I've done either as a prosecutor or uh, uh, a police officer, or of course now I'm in administration, which means I do a lot of meetings and budgeting, but all of it at least tied to public safety. And if at least for me personally, I think you probably would agree with this, but uh, I'm really down with the public safety mission. I think that what police officers and prosecutors do, I think it's an essential function of a safe society, and has been for centuries. I think it's the most noble of professions, and because I've had this unique chance and really blessing to have worked in a DA's office as a prosecutor, which is a job that I loved. To work as an agent with OBN, for all those years. And to do that, in that I had assignments with the Marshal Service and HSI and uh, DEA, and just was very blessed to do that. Because I've kind of danced uh, in both arenas. I kind of understand the demands each one has. Or I'm sorry, the challenges each one faces as they kind of tie together. And so I just, for me personally, I think there's, I mean, anything I think any peace officer does at any time, I think it furthers that public safety mission. But you kind of get older, like you and I, and you kind of think about, okay, what am I going to do with my time? And for me, I think that as much as I can speak about topics that help uh, officers do their job, support them, and I think that's one of those things that it's not necessarily a widget you can count, but to me, it's kind of one of the more rewarding things. I think that,
Mhm.
and so it's not just talking about the big topics like complex conspiracies and wiretaps and things like that, but just basic aspects of the Fourth Amendment, Miranda, to a academy, a brand new cadets. That to me is important too, because those are things they'll take with them kind of their entire career. So it's kind of supporting them in what they're doing. So it's kind of how I come to it, and I just really enjoy that.
Well, let me ask you this. So you said you've been on for 28 years. I've been on for 25 and a half years roughly. And you'd mentioned it yourself. You've got a really unique perspective because you were a special agent. You've worked as you've been on both ends, man. You've worked as the special agent and you've worked with district attorneys, and then you've also been the district attorney first assistant up in Rogers County where I worked with you up there,
So I've lost
and
audio.
now as you're maybe Amanda will kind of work with you on that. Are you good? Can you hear me? Amanda, can you hear me? So as we're trying to get that fixed, this is part of the thing that we'll get these things ironed out, of course, and these happen when you're talking about online kind of a deals. But while we're getting that ironed out, one of the things that I was gonna we'll get to talking to him in a minute. That's the unique thing about Brian that I really love is the fact that he was a special agent. He also was a district attorney, and he has worked on both ends of the spectrum as far as uh, having to go out there and be on search warrants and kicking in doors, and then going from there and actually prosecuting cases, which is a super rare thing to come across in this type of in this world. So that's just kind of part of it. Uh, I'm going to talk to Brian here when he comes back on here, and I want to ask him. I'm going to ask him kind of where here he comes. He's coming back on now. Can you hear us now, Brian? Are you back?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, great. Yep, I can hear you. So one of the things that I was kind of talking about while we were off there is that you bring such a unique perspective of that you were an agent, you were kicking indoors, and then you were actually you were working with prosecutors, and then you were a prosecutor to boot. So kind of the question I have, since you've been involved in the industry for 28 and some odd years, and we talked a little bit about this earlier today, is what first of all, what are the agents like that are different? What about today? I mean, the agents that are coming out today, I know that they're different than they are from 20 years ago, just because the world has evolved in different ways. And that's one part of the question. And then that also, I'm kind of interested to know, where do you really see us going in the next 20 years? I mean, what do you see us 20 years from now down the line?
So, the gosh, the whole game has changed. It's changed. There was kind of a time warp for me where I went back to a DA's office for a few years and went back to the bureau. And heck, when I left, weed was illegal, and came back, and weed's been legalized, and there's this vast black market, which is about three-fourths of my inbox on a day-to-day basis since I've been back at OBN. So, there are just it's different now than it was before. There's a huge, and I think it's I've seen it both with in DA's offices and with prosecutors and with police officers. There's just a huge recruiting problem. We are not having the number of applicants to do that, um, and which is it's kind of hard for me to understand. Probably you too, because I feel so. I mean, I didn't want to necessarily be a police officer. I kind of fell into it. I didn't want to be a prosecutor necessarily. I was not just going to go into business, and got a job in the DA's office. And I've been so fortunate to be in the profession, be around the people, and to do that. And so, it's just it's a little bit harder. I mean, I go to give presentations, and Jason, there are people in my classes that were not born when I started in the DA's office in 1996, and it's
Yeah, for
just
sure.
it's hard to kind of just put, because we got we started, we got a calling card and a pager, because I was in a DA's office. It was a long distance, and if you the only phones around the office was a big bag phone with the drug task force supervisor had to worry about peak and non-peak and roaming. And now we've got just this kind of this communication where there's just this constant digital communication. I remember when I was at the bureau, whenever I got email on my BlackBerry, I'm like, this is some Dick Tracy stuff here.
Yeah.
Can't believe this. And so it's really changed. Uh,
I think he got locked up again, unfortunately. Having a little bit of difficulty. I'll tell you what, as far as one of the things that I remember back in the day is the Nextels and the chirping and things like that. And he said it just a moment ago that one of the problems that we're having right now is the recruitment, to get individuals that are willing to sign up for police departments, et cetera. He just messaged me and said that he got kicked off, so he's trying to get restarted up and so forth. And I'm sure he'll be able to do that. But if you're out there in the world and you're interested, or you have ever been interested in an exciting career in the criminal justice field, I would strongly encourage you to look into all of the various agencies that exist out there. There's plenty of them, and actually there is no time like the present, both state, local, and federal, to look into becoming a law enforcement officer if you've lived a relatively decent life and haven't ridden around with Jesse James. I mean, it's a lot easier now. Welcome back. Welcome back. Looks like
Can you hear me?
I could hear you just
Okay.
fine. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So my network update without
Okay.
any, it just decided to do that. And so
Hey,
it's
it
updating.
happens. No worries. No
Oh my
worries.
God.
You've put me on the spot and you've made me ad lib, and that's okay because I can talk a lot. So, no, I was just
well,
talking to him and mentioning something. So,
Yeah.
so you're saying that it's hard to get people to sign up for these jobs and stuff,
Yeah.
and we're not getting applicants that are just running through the
Right.
doors.
Yeah. And then you get like me and you, Jason, and I can't manage the technology to actually do a digital broadcast, and it's
Yeah.
showing I'll show you my computer. It's updating the firmware right now, 10% done.
Nowhere.
So,
Well,
yeah.
that's actually why I have Amanda here. That's behind the curtain to make sure that everything kind of goes without a hitch.
All right. Well,
Anyway, so no worries. So you saying so the people of yesterday were basically. I mean, I know that agents were different. I mean, for sure, we've evolved. Now we have body cams. We've got a lot of different things that are out there and so forth. But in as far as where do you see this going in 15 to 20 years? I mean, well, actually, before we mention that real quick, I want to throw one thing in there. Is the fentanyl? What is fentanyl and the hype that goes on, because we hear about it on the news all the time, and I know the answer to this, but just for the listener, that's a serious deal, right?
Yeah, and so fentanyl is about 50 times as powerful as heroin. Now, heroin is heroin and morphine, they come from the poppy plant, so it requires the farming of the poppy. Happens almost exclusively overseas in Asia. And fentanyl is completely synthetic, which means it's manufactured at a without any need for farming. Everything can be done kind of in a lab. And so it kind of went in phases. I mean, if you want to know kind of how we got there, there was a time, probably, I don't know, 12 years ago, that prescription drug abuse nationwide was the number one kind of drug problem that we had, just the diverting of opioid pharmaceutical medications to the illegal, illicit use. And that's what we saw. That's kind of when that started. We really started the overdose uh, uh, epidemic that we had, where they just skyrocketed. And so that happens, and then we catch up to it, and we kind of just get with some of these prescription monitoring programs and a lot of education with doctors, because they're getting it from pharmacies and doctors, and we did, and kind of got a handle on that. Well, right when that happens, then the cartels essentially go and
All right. We're hitting a weird spot. I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's, oh, here we go.
there. Yeah, I could,
Yeah.
yeah, I could hear you, Jason. Back, can you hear me?
All
Okay.
right. Yeah, you're good.
Can you hear? Okay.
Yep.
I don't know where I had cut out, but and so then we get to fentanyl, and it started off with kind of they called them, the blues, and just those oxycodone 30s that were kind of that's kind of where it started. But it's been adulterated in methamphetamine. You'll see it in marijuana THC cartridges, and the vapes, and so it is just something that's being done kind of at the super lab level. And then there's just kind of like always, there's kind of this competition to do it. We've recently seen tranquilizer, and it's kind of been this kind of called trank, and it on the street, and it's been used kind of as a cutting agent in fentanyl, but it's actually being done at the super labs, because at the seizures at the ports of entry actually are containing xylazine. So we're having kind of a skyrocketing increase for xylazine. All of ours in Oklahoma so far, the overdoses and the fatal overdoses where xylazine contributed were also fentanyl that was mixed in there as well. But that's just kind of this newest thing that we're getting. It's just highly, opiate addiction is so addictive, and so that's what we've kind of seen. And it's done differently by the cartels than when we see kind of methamphetamine and how it's kind of marketed, and cocaine. Meth and coke are very similar, but fentanyl and heroin are just kind of done in a different way, in how they kind of set that up and do that. So it's been
Well,
it's been a challenge for sure.
And a lot of this is coming over the border, of course, and
Yeah.
and if I'm not mistaken, it originates from China, if that's what I've heard. So, and the drug world is not really my thing, but it is my thing in a sense, because a lot of these deaths, and technically in the state of Oklahoma, it's on the books that you could theoretically be charged with murder if you are an individual that sells drugs to somebody and they end up dying from an overdose from that drug. Is that correct? I mean, that is correct, if
Yes.
I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Okay.
It's basic felony murder law, DUI.
And I know that me being a homicide detective, I mean, maybe somebody's going, what, this guy doesn't know that? Well, I don't really that's not the type of murders that I'm dealing with. That's more of a narcotics investigator kind of a thing, where they dive into that. There's no way in the world we could possibly stay up on those type of murder investigations. But what I'm getting at is, my question is that as potent as fentanyl is, and it's coming over there, I think a lot of times, a lot of these overdoses, isn't it true that fentanyl is laced on a lot of these drugs, and the individuals that are taking it don't even know that there's fentanyl on there?
Yes. Yeah. It can be.
Okay.
They use pill presses, and it's they'll
So
make
what
it
would
look.
be the point? What's the point? I mean, of these guys
Well,
that are basically lacing these things with it when they know that they may die from it? If that makes sense. That's
Yeah.
the thing that's kind of hard for me to wrap my head around, is why would they be sending these drugs over here with fentanyl laced on stuff when they don't really know, and it just kills off the customer base, you would think. I mean, that's my thought.
A couple things. Initially, fentanyl
Yeah, you
counterfeit
kind of
heroin.
blocked off. You can. Oh, okay.
Okay,
Now you're back.
initially it was sold as counterfeit heroin. I remember we had a case one time where we thought the people in Boston ordered 30 pounds of heroin and pull it off, and it's actually 30 pounds of fentanyl. And so you'll have that at times. Then they were kind of like when people try to sell pills on the street, the oxycodone, 30 milligram oxycodones that we call the 30s. It was just done as counterfeit pills to kind of just do that. And again, you don't know how much of fentanyl's in there because obviously it's not done at a quality control level. But get to this, like why we've seen it was laced in methamphetamine, and why would you put a central nervous system depressant into a stimulant? And the really only reason is if someone's using methamphetamine and ice that comes from over the border in Mexico. Well, if they have fentanyl in there, that they can easily get addicted to it, and they've actually expanded their customer base. And so there's a number of
So what I'm just curious as to, I mean, I don't even know if you can even answer this, and hopefully you're going to be back floating back in when I get done with this and you're able to hear me. But so I mean, I don't even know that you can even answer this. What efforts are being done really that if you can even speak on it to actually kind of go after these super labs, and are these super labs kind of like the Breaking Bad super lab that we we saw on Netflix, where you have Breaking Bad? Is that the type of super labs that we're talking about? And do those exist? I'm sure they do. I'm sure they exist right here, right?
For the most part, your super labs are going to be all south of the border. Yeah, we don't have really the only thing we see now on the lab side are what we call them conversion labs, and they might produce the methamphetamine hydrochloride, which is kind of methamphetamine in the powder form. They'll dissolve it in a liquid and water, ship it over, easier to conceal. This looks like just kind of some kind of cloudy water. Then there's just kind of a drying process, get buckets. So we call them conversion labs. It's not technically, if you want to get geek out, it's not a manufacturing because it's not a chemical synthesis. But no, all the labs are south. We don't really have, there were times we had the big labs, the phenyl 2-propanone kind of back in the 90s, but and some with Uncle Fester meth labs before 2004. But currently, we really don't have any of those. It's all done south of the border.
Okay. Now, I want to mention real quick, I'd mentioned in your bio that #1 best-selling book of yours, and it's #1 best-selling for a reason. It's the book that's called Injustice for All, The Familiar Fallacies of Criminal Justice Reform. Tell us a little bit about that and why this book should be in our library at home.
Well, so probably about 5-6 years ago, in kind of my journey in public safety, I got into the leadership of our state narcotics association. I taught there. It's a conference we have. You've taught there several times. And I had given presentations at the conference. It'd be 500 to 600 people there. And I got on leadership. And one of our missions is kind of to look at how do we support public safety. And that's kind of when this criminal justice reform stuff started. And so I kind of focus more instead of kind of the nuts and bolts things that you see with. I'm trying to log on here because my computer just finished updating. Beyond just kind of the Fourth Amendment stuff and things like that that I've done in the past, is more kind of on the policy basis, and just kind of arguing the importance of the policy and just what happens. So I kind of started to see the arguments for that. And the short story how I got into the book is I was on a vacation with my wife, and I've kind of always been, as a nerd, been into kind of economic theorists. I'll kind of read their books, and I've heard about a guy named Friedrich Hayek, who wrote a book called The Road to Serfdom, and it essentially was kind of making the case for freedom and free market. And his whole point was, post World War II, there was a lot of propaganda and lies that went out to promote kind of a collectivist socialist ideal, take away individual freedom. And he identifies kind of where that is, and the motion picture industry, radio, academia, what they did, and exactly how they just kind of redefined things in couch terms, and just to kind of promote these what he believed to be nonsense ideas. And of course, I kind of do too. And I was reading that on vacation with my wife, and I said, "This is exactly what we're seeing at these legislative bodies and these arguments made about criminal justice reform." she said, "Why don't you write a book?" So that kind of started. I said, "Well, I think I will," and I outlined it and just went
Yeah,
through
sure,
that.
honey. That's easy.
Yeah, yeah,
I'll just whip out a book for you.
yeah. And so, let me see, 13 months later, I had the manuscript to the copy editor and had done that. And so, of course, the interesting thing is, the manuscript was due, let's see, December of 2020. And here I'm writing this book. I started it the November before, and the thesis of my book is essentially, if you lay off of enforcement, and enforcement could be legalizing something, decriminalizing something. It could be a prosecutor not filing charges of policy, but you lay off of enforcing the law, whether you change the law or don't enforce what's on the books. If you lay off of that and curtail it, bad things will happen. Then we have the summer of 2020 with all the George Floyd and all these efforts to defund the police and do that. And I'm using historical models of kind of things in Chicago and Baltimore after the Freddie Gray incident and the efforts and what happened when they charged the officers and they kind of laid back on enforcement. The success stories of New York City when they used a broken windows policy and they dropped their murder rate 66% by kind of just forcing the law at even the most basic level, not allowing the most minor nuisance crimes. And they made actually fewer people in prison in New York, yet the crime rate went down because they just didn't let people kind of get to that level where it just kind of goes off the rails. And then and I can't keep up. I mean, I've got the manuscript due, and you revise it, and I can't keep up. And so there's more evidence now in terms of all these communities. I mean, everyone who ran their pie hole about defunding the police and reimagining and all the new ways to call criminal conduct to rationalize it and attachment theories. None of those, they've all kind of run away from that just because it's been disastrous. I mean, there's really nobody wants to be attached to not supporting the police right now, because it is just even in these jurisdictions and governments that supported it openly and defund and take away enforcement groups from the police. Now they're kind of asking for more police, and to do that because they've seen just what a disaster it's been for everybody. So that's kind of what the premise of the book is, and it really kind of obviously there's really not a lot. I mean, they've used this kind of academic and all these kind of nonsense studies or redefining things in a way. And so I try to make it a nonfiction book. What I tried to, it was a nonfiction book with citing the sources. I got like 300, I forget how many, over 300 citations of everything. I don't want it to be my opinion, but just essentially just kind of have the historical record. There's a very robust historical record that direct enforcement and consequences of acts leads to a reduction in crime, and laying off it kind of explodes, and it just really undoes, because obviously what you and I and those in law enforcement, what we do, we really are just there for victims and to make everything safer. That's the whole point of why we exist. To me, it's why government exists at this level. Is there's two rules. Everything else is debatable. There's two reasons we should have government. Or a state, and it goes back to if you're a tribe in cavemen in the Stone Ages, protect yourselves from external threat, the military, and then internal order, which is kind of the police, and this kind of rules people abide by. And there's just this kind of idea that the notion that you decriminalize activities and crime goes down. I mean, it is so stupid. It's like that. It's like some of those things that some ideas are so dumb only an intellectual could believe them. That
Right.
we're going to reduce the penalty for breaking into cars, and that will lead to less people breaking into cars. Like some of them say, you know what, I really didn't want to break in a car, but my gosh, they have it a felony. I can't make myself not commit this felony. If you make it a misdemeanor and let me out of jail, I'm going to quit doing it. Gosh, it is such nonsense, and to say those things with kind of a straight face, but the is being right. The only thing that surprised me is I am surprised how fast the decline has happened in these areas. And
I would agree with that from living in this world as well. That in our world, I mean, I think the general citizen may not realize how much bad stuff is happening, but it does, and it's happening at an alarming rate, actually. The other thing I wanted to mention real quick, Brian, before, because I don't want to miss this opportunity, but your website, which is brianserber.com, am I right on that? There you
That's
go. It's up on the screen. So I'm telling you right now that when you look at this website, if you're a police officer, you're a prosecutor, I mean, he doesn't have it restricted. So if you're a normal citizen, you are welcome to look up his site. And I will tell you something about this site when you look it up is it has got a mother load of information on there with different resources, and I'm sure that you can roll through some of them. But one of them I am going to mention is Miranda stuff that is super helpful to investigators and also really for prosecutors. I mean, they really should have an idea as to what's going on there. Because I mean, how much time does prosecutors really get in law school when it comes to criminal law? You know, so they really should be aware of all the ins and outs and what can happen here and there, et cetera. But mention a couple of the other things that are on your website that I just think are spectacular.
So what I've, whenever you kind of presenting and teaching, especially on kind of a curriculum based, which is nuts and bolts, Miranda search warrants, consensus search, whatever it might be. There's always some information, and we've all been to those seminars and trainings, and you kind of get the binder. Okay, you're gonna get this binder, and it's gonna be good stuff. You're gonna keep it, and we also are gonna refer to it. Then you change offices, and like, why the hell did I keep that? I mean, we've all done it, and or I'll mention something. It might be real familiar, but if there's an officer that's on a midnight shift 6 months from now, something I said about staleness or a consent or an exigency or incident to arrest, whatever it might be. That's going to sound kind of familiar, but where would you have that? Are you going to have that with you? And so, essentially, what I do now when I present, and I've got a handout, and it could be like the article on Miranda. It could be a search warrant. I got a search warrant checklist, factors relevant to voluntary consent, a lot of things like that. That the idea being, look, if you can go, no matter where you are, that you can go to brianserver.com. I own that, and click on the tabs as resources, and there's buttons with all those kind of PDFs. So that way, there's last week I taught a search warrant class, and to me, most search warrants they're just clerical oversights. Cops know probable cause, and to me it's the and it's just a lot. I think life's kind of like roulette, that it's a law of large numbers. We touch too many things. If you do it often enough, there's going to be a time when you're just going to kind of miss something. And when you proofread your own stuff, you look over it because you know those facts. And so kind of the idea is that checklist is kind of like an airline checklist, that when they have pilot, no matter how experienced a pilot is and how many times he's flown, they go through the checklist, because when you do it over and over again, you can think past certain things. And did I check this? Did I put in there that that's the defendant's residence? Did I actually double check that everything I'm looking for I supported with probable cause in the affidavit? Just clerical things, and you can check that off. So if you're writing a search warrant sometime, you can go up and just kind of use that checklist. And the idea being that I just feel that it's really challenging to be in law enforcement. And I mean, Jason, I can use you as an example. You go do your job, do a great job, and here you've got a guy that's really killed somebody, maybe killed several people, has victimized people, that has killed one person, the surviving family, the most traumatic thing they're ever going to experience. And then we've got a process, and which is fine. It's a check on government, and it's guaranteed by the Bill of Rights. But we've got the process of a trial. So you go do your job, Detective Jason White, and there's a guy with a doctoral degree waiting to attack you and everything you did in the forum of under oath with a jury, and he's a skilled with a doctoral degree to attack you and to actually accuse you of things and make people believe things about you that, if true, you would lose your job and go to prison. And there's no other profession like that I know of that faces that. The teachers, if they give the kid a grade they deserve, I don't think they actually get that. The parents hire a lawyer and they go into court and get kind of attack them. It's just we're used to it, but I think it's extremely challenging and a very important mission. So the more I can kind of support and give officers kind of that the confidence to kind of be able to look back at those things and do that. To me, that's what really kind of helps move the ball forward for us in public safety. So I think it's really hard. It was hard to be in public safety, especially an investigator, that what you do necessarily goes into court. I mean, a lot of people don't go to court very often, but when you are doing investigations that are related to major felonies, where someone's entire life could be the defendant's life is at stake. And those kind of big stakes. Those cases go to court and get contested. And so I think the more that we can support officers in doing that. And again, it's changed now just because there are still a lot of groups that exist that their entire mission is to destroy and attack law enforcement. And I'm not talking about a fence lawyer that gets hired, but actual advocacy groups that is kind of their mission to attack law enforcement and what we try to do. And it makes it stressful, it makes it hard. And so I think the more that we can support the men and women that do that, and that extremely important mission. I mean, we have to have quality law enforcement if we want a society that we want our kids to grow up in. And so it's harder now, but I've kind of think the last line of the book is it's never been harder to be in law enforcement. It never has been, but it's never been more important. I mean, that right now that the victims of crime and the vulnerable need the public safety people to do that. And so that's kind of what the goal of the website is, the resources is to kind of empower that as much as possible, because I know they're not, if I can give them handouts, they can't carry all those things in the car and know where they're at when they need them. And so just kind of a place to kind of always go to get those things if they can be used to help the guys.
Well, and I'm going to echo that right quick. That I'm going to echo that really quick. That I don't want to say right quick. I'm going to sound like a freaking Okie. So, but anyway, I'm going to echo the fact that look up his website. If you're law enforcement, you're a prosecutor, if you're just interested, take a look. And I think that you're going to be fascinated with what he's got in there. It's actually super. I mean, you could spend a day looking through the materials that you have in there easily. And also take a look at that book. And I'm going to just tell you that the reviews that are for his book are from people that are super all-stars. I mean, these guys have been around. When I read through the people that have commented on that stuff, they're just they're remarkable people. They're people that I trust in this industry. And I think that I think I'm fair to say, Brian, that it's not just people that are here that it's not just Oklahoma. It's national. It's applicable throughout this country, if I'm not mistaken. Right?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
there's not a lot. There's a few Oklahoma experiences in there, and I'll tell you, Jason, I'll give you one kind of quick example of some where this is kind of the Oklahoma tie. I've got a chapter called "Where the Meth Labs Go," and there's a time when in Tulsa, in Northeast Oklahoma, there was that kind of second phase of meth labs. The one pot lab, which essentially what that is, it's a single reaction vessel. It's a smaller manufacturing event, like one box of cold medicine instead of a case. But in, I believe, 2008, no, is that what it was? Yeah. Tulsa had 431 meth labs. Okay. 431 meth labs. And in 2019, they had 2. Okay. So it's a 99.5% reduction in meth labs. We didn't legalize it. We didn't give them counseling. We didn't reimagine enforcement or anything like that. What we did was we actually it was you have to source to make methamphetamine, and the way that everyone has done it, you have to have pseudoephedrine, and it's not really an ingredient. You take it and just actually convert it into methamphetamine. So it's not an ingredient. You just use other chemicals to kind of kick off a little oxygen, hydrogen, and then you have base methamphetamine. So you have to have pseudoephedrine. We basically targeted that and doing that, and that was law enforcement. And we did enforcement. We targeted it. Everyone did that. We did we did operations where we targeted those at pharmacies and did that, and we don't have them anymore. Policymakers, people on the left, they don't have to worry about kids in meth labs because we don't have them because of enforcement. You can say the same thing with the synthetic cannabinoids and the spice and the incense sold as a knockoff cannabinoid at convenience stores. We made it really kind of not be cool to do that by charging them, hitting people doing that. We don't have it anymore. So we've solved problems not by legalized, not these new ideas that come up to student union to grad school, but by basic enforcement with that. So that's kind of what we've, at least my pitch for what is important. So there's some Oklahoma examples, but it's just a national policy book.
Good stuff. I know that they can get it on Amazon. They can also go to your website and check out to find out where to get it. Brian, I can't thank you enough. I know that we could talk for hours. We really could. Me and you have talked for hours. If somebody was interested in finding you to be able to teach somewhere in the country, because there's people that are literally going to be listening to this throughout the world. And that's the truth. I'm not just saying that. There really is. I know there are, because they reach out to me all the time. They can go to your website and reach out to you if they were interested in you teaching them, possibly for search and seizure, drugs, whatever. Maybe just reach out to you. And I'm telling you, I've seen him teach. He's amazing. Read his book. And man, I can't thank you enough for being on, Brian. I mean, you're a super important person. You're the deputy director of the Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics. Thank you for being here. And who knows, we may have you on again to talk about more important issues later on down the line, but I want to thank you very much.
Hey, next time either have my daughter or a millennial that won't be able to work their computer and I'll have it restart. Okay.
Yes.
I'm talking about the youth in there, and here the old man has his computer restart, and
it's all good.
So yeah.
Listen, it happens.
It's been great. I'm sorry Ronnie couldn't be here. I didn't know Ronnie was your Ed McMahon until I heard your intro too.
He is my Ed McMahon. He's going to be here. He's going to be great. Thanks a lot, Brian. I appreciate you. I'm gonna close out the show and just basically let everybody know that, if you're still here at this point in time, I really sincerely appreciate you all being here. This is a big deal. This is a fun hobby for me. I'm not on here making any money. This is just basically for me to do something that's actually worthwhile and something that's going to keep me from just sitting there watching the TV, or just something to engage my brain and so forth. So I hope that you enjoyed this first installment. Yes, we had a couple of glitches, but next week, I got to tell you real quick, because I've got about a minute to go here. Next week, we're going to have I think it's a spectacular show. Honestly, I think it's going to be amazing. Believe it or not, she's a convicted felon. She's somebody that I actually met in while she was at the federal prison in Southern Illinois by chance. And she's going to tell her story. And she was a registered nurse and kind of fell victim to a drug addiction. And her story is absolutely amazing. And I think that it's going to be pretty good. Hey, if you wanted to get in touch with me, by the way, there's several ways to do it. You can get in touch with me via Facebook. There's the stuff. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of that stuff is on there. I'm very accessible, and I really do appreciate it. So I am going to have to get off here, and you're going to hear the closing music. And good night, all. Be safe. Happy holidays, and we'll catch you the next time.